Derek Mitchell had built his life on three principles: loyalty, precision, and consequences. At 38, he owned a successful private investigation firm in suburban Atlanta, specializing in corporate espionage and personal security. His reputation was built on his ability to uncover secrets that others preferred buried, and his willingness to use those secrets when necessary. Derek's childhood had forged him in fire. Raised by a single mother after his father abandoned them for another woman, he'd watched his mother struggle with 2 jobs while his father lived comfortably with his new family across town. When Derek was 16, his father had tried to reconnect, offering hollow apologies and empty promises. Derek had listened, nodded, and then systematically destroyed his father's new business by exposing tax evasion to the IRS. The lesson was clear. Betrayal had a price, and Derek was always willing to collect. He'd met Amanda 5 years ago at a charity gala. She was radiant, ambitious, and worked as a marketing director for a tech startup. Her beauty was undeniable: long auburn hair, emerald eyes, and a smile that could disarm anyone. What attracted Derek wasn't just her looks, but her apparent loyalty and family values. She spoke passionately about wanting children, about building something lasting. They married within 18 months, and their son Tyler was born 2 years later. Tyler, now 4 years old, was Derek's pride and joy. The boy had inherited his father's sharp intelligence and his mother's striking features. Derek had been working fewer hours, trying to be the father he'd never had, taking Tyler to the park every Sunday afternoon. On this particular Sunday, Derek noticed Tyler seemed more observant than usual as they walked through Piedmont Park. The boy's eyes darted around constantly, scanning faces and shadows. Derek had always been proud of Tyler's awareness, a useful trait in their family line. "Daddy, can we go to the playground?" Tyler asked, tugging on Derek's hand.
"Of course, buddy. Want to race to the swings?"
They spent an hour playing, Derek pushing Tyler on the swings while keeping a professional eye on their surroundings. It was a habit he couldn't shake, even in peaceful moments. The park was crowded with families, joggers, and the usual Sunday afternoon crowd. As they were preparing to leave, the familiar jingle of an ice cream truck echoed across the park. Tyler's eyes lit up, and Derek smiled, reaching for his wallet. "My son and I were at the park. He suddenly dropped his toy truck and grabbed my leg. Daddy, we have to leave right now." Derek looked down, confused by his son's sudden panic. Tyler's face had gone pale, his small hands gripping Derek's leg with surprising strength. Derek looked around, confused. "Why, buddy? What's wrong?" Tyler pointed toward the ice cream truck. Then Derek saw a person behind the truck. Suddenly it happened. Derek followed his son's pointing finger and felt his world tilt on its axis. Behind the ice cream truck, partially hidden by a large oak tree, stood Amanda. She wasn't alone. A tall man with dark hair had his arms wrapped around her waist, and they were sharing a passionate kiss, the kind only lovers share, not the casual affection of friends. Derek's training kicked in immediately. He memorized everything. The man's height, approximately 6'2", build, athletic, probably 180 pounds, clothing, expensive jeans, polo shirt, designer watch, and most importantly his face. Strong jawline, neat beard, confident posture. This wasn't a chance encounter or a fleeting moment of weakness. The familiarity between them spoke of a long-term relationship. Tyler tugged on his father's pants again. "Daddy, is that why Mommy's been coming home late? Is that her special friend she talks to on the phone?" The words hit Derek like physical blows. His 4-year-old son had been watching, learning, understanding more than any child should have to. Derek knelt down, his mind racing between fury and calculation. "Tyler, you're very smart. Has Mommy brought this friend to our house?" "No, but I heard her talking to him. She uses a different voice, like when she talks to Grandma, but different." Derek's jaw tightened. His wife had been conducting an affair, and their innocent son had been witnessing pieces of it. The betrayal was complete, not just of their marriage, but of their family, their child's security. "We're going home now, Tyler, and you did exactly the right thing, telling Daddy. You're very brave." As they walked to the car, Derek's mind was already working. Amanda thought she was clever, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd underestimated her husband's profession and overestimated her own cunning. Derek Mitchell had spent 15 years learning how to dismantle lives professionally. Now, for the first time, it was personal. The drive home was silent, except for Tyler's occasional questions about ice cream. Derek's hands gripped the steering wheel as he planned his next moves. Amanda would answer for this betrayal, and so would her lover. But it would be methodical, thorough, and devastating. Derek didn't believe in quick revenge. He believed in complete destruction. When they arrived home, Amanda's car was in the driveway. She greeted them at the door with a bright smile, asking about their day at the park. Derek watched her performance with new eyes, noting the slight flush in her cheeks, the careful way she avoided prolonged eye contact, and the subtle scent of a different cologne lingering on her clothes. "We had a great time," Derek said evenly. "Tyler was very observant today, weren't you, buddy?" Amanda's smile faltered for just a moment, her eyes darting uncertainly between Derek and Tyler. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Derek sat in his home office and began planning. The first step was gathering intelligence. The second was identifying weaknesses. The third was exploitation. Amanda and her lover had no idea what was coming, but Derek was going to teach them both the true meaning of consequences. Derek had always been methodical, but personal betrayal sharpened his focus to a razor's edge. Over the next 3 days, he maintained perfect normalcy at home while conducting a professional investigation into his own wife's infidelity. His staff at Mitchell Investigations believed he was working on a high-priority case for a wealthy client, which, in a sense, he was. Amanda's pattern became clear. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she claimed to work late for client presentations. Her phone records, which Derek accessed through contacts and telecommunications, showed extensive communication with a number registered to Kyle Brennan, a construction project manager for Apex Development Group. Derek's background check revealed Brennan was 35, divorced, and had a reputation for aggressive business tactics and an even more aggressive personal life. The surveillance photos Derek's team captured were damning. Amanda and Kyle met regularly at the Marriott downtown, always entering separately and leaving an hour apart. They had dinner at upscale restaurants in parts of the city where Amanda was unlikely to encounter anyone from her social circle. Most telling were the photos of them apartment hunting in Buckhead. Kyle's hand possessively on Amanda's lower back as they toured luxury condos. Derek discovered they'd been planning their future together for months. Bank records showed Amanda had been secretly moving money into a separate account. She'd already given notice at her current job and had accepted a position with a firm in Austin, information she'd never shared with Derek. Kyle had been offered a lucrative position with the same company that had recruited Amanda. They were planning to disappear together, taking Tyler away from Derek forever. But Derek's most devastating discovery came through Tyler himself. During their regular bedtime routine, Tyler mentioned something that made Derek's blood run cold. "Daddy, why does Mommy's friend Kyle want to adopt me?" Derek kept his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "What do you mean, buddy?" "I heard Mommy talking to him on the phone. She said after they moved to Austin, Cal could be my new daddy and you'd just visit sometimes. But I don't want a new daddy. I want you." The audacity was breathtaking. Amanda wasn't just planning to leave him, she was planning to steal his son and hand him over to her lover. Derek tucked Tyler in with extra care that night, promising himself that would never happen. Derek's investigation into Kyle Brennan revealed a man with significant vulnerabilities. Kyle had been involved in several construction projects with serious safety violations, including one that had resulted in a worker's permanent disability. More importantly, Kyle had been skimming money from project budgets, a federal crime that could result in years in prison. Derek also discovered Kyle had a gambling problem, owing substantial money to some very unsavory people in Birmingham. Amanda's background revealed different weaknesses. Her new job offer was contingent on a thorough background check that included financial stability and character references. Her current employer, where she'd worked for 3 years, had no idea she was planning to leave. More damaging, Amanda had been padding her expense reports for the past year, stealing nearly $15,000 from her company. Derek spent hours in his office building files on both targets. But this wasn't just about gathering evidence. It was about understanding how to cause maximum psychological and financial damage. Derek had learned long ago that the most effective revenge wasn't quick. It was slow, methodical, and comprehensive. On Thursday evening, Derek decided to accelerate his timeline. Amanda announced she'd be working late again, kissing Derek goodbye with the same lips that had been kissing Kyle Brennan. Derek waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then made a phone call. Mitchell Investigations, this is Derek. I need a surveillance team at the Marriott downtown penthouse suite. High priority. While Amanda thought she was safely hidden in her lover's arms, Derek's team was documenting everything. But Derek wasn't just gathering evidence for a divorce. He was building the foundation for something much more devastating. Derek had also begun his own psychological warfare. He started leaving Kyle Brennan's business cards in random places around the house. Inside Amanda's purse, bookmarked in magazines she read, tucked into her car's visor. Never obviously placed, always where Amanda would find them later and wonder how they'd gotten there. The goal was to plant seeds of paranoia and doubt. He also began mentioning random facts about construction projects around Atlanta, especially ones involving Apex development. Amanda's growing nervousness was obvious to someone trained to read micro-expressions and body language. The most crucial element of Derek's plan was time. Amanda and Kyle believed they had months to execute their escape plan. Derek was going to ensure they had days. But first, he needed to understand exactly how far their betrayal went. And he needed to position himself perfectly for the coming storm. On Friday night, Derek made his most important discovery. While Amanda showered, Derek checked her laptop and found emails that revealed the full scope of their plan. They intended to frame their departure as Derek's fault, claiming he was controlling and potentially abusive. Kyle had already been feeding this narrative to Amanda's family and their mutual friends. They were planning to paint Derek as the villain in their love story. Derek smiled for the first time in days. They'd handed him exactly the ammunition he needed to destroy them both. Amanda and Kyle thought they were playing chess, but Derek had been playing a different game entirely. They were about to learn that some moves couldn't be taken back, and some prices were too high to pay. The weekend passed quietly, but Derek's mind was never still. By Monday morning, he'd finalized his strategy. Amanda and Kyle Brennan were about to discover what happened when someone betrayed Derek Mitchell. The lesson would be thorough, permanent, and devastating. Derek understood that true revenge required patience and precision. Over the weekend, he'd refined his strategy into a 3-phase plan that would systematically destroy both Amanda and Kyle while ensuring Derek retained custody of Tyler and emerged financially unscathed. Monday morning brought the first phase into action. Derek arrived at his office early and called a staff meeting. His team of investigators consisted of former law enforcement and military personnel who shared Derek's philosophy about loyalty and consequences. He assigned them specific tasks without revealing the personal nature of the case. We're dealing with 2 targets who've engaged in fraud, theft, and conspiracy, Derek explained to his team of 5 investigators. Our client wants complete documentation of their activities and a comprehensive disruption of their plans. Jennifer Chun, his lead investigator and a former FBI agent, raised an eyebrow. How comprehensive are we talking? Total destruction. Legal, financial, personal, and professional. They've crossed a line, and our client wants them to understand there are consequences for their choices. Derek's team began executing surveillance and information gathering with military precision. While they worked, Derek implemented the psychological phase of his plan. He started small, having flowers delivered to Amanda's office from a secret admirer, ensuring Kyle's name was accidentally included on the delivery receipt. The goal was to make Amanda nervous about their secrecy being compromised. Derek also began planting evidence of financial investigations around their home. He left banking documents on his desk where Amanda would see them, highlighting sections about asset protection and hidden accounts. He casually mentioned friends who discovered their spouses had been stealing money. Each seed of doubt was carefully planted and nurtured. The most crucial element was establishing his own innocence and victimhood. He began documenting every interaction with Amanda, saving messages and phone records, making sure that if accusations arose, he would have a mountain of evidence in his favor. Derek began documenting Amanda's suspicious behavior, recording her lies about working late and carefully preserving evidence of her emotional distance from Tyler. He also started therapy sessions with Dr. Patricia Wolf, a respected family counselor, ostensibly to discuss concerns about his marriage and Tyler's welfare. "I'm worried about Amanda," Derek told Dr. Wolf during their Tuesday session. "She's been distant, working late constantly, and Tyler has noticed the change. He asked me why Mommy doesn't read to him anymore." Dr. Wolf documented everything, creating a professional record of Derek's concerns about his wife's behavior and his dedication to his son's well-being. Derek knew these records would be crucial in custody proceedings. Meanwhile, Derek's investigation team had uncovered devastating information about Kyle Brennan's criminal activities. Kyle had been involved in a bid-rigging scheme that defrauded the city of Atlanta out of $2.3 million. More importantly, Kyle had been skimming money from construction projects and had stolen nearly $400,000 over the past 2 years. Derek now had enough evidence to send Kyle to federal prison for a decade. But Derek wasn't ready to reveal his hand yet. Instead, he began phase 2, manipulation and misdirection. Derek started spreading carefully crafted rumors through his network of contacts in law enforcement and the business community. Kyle Brennan was being investigated for fraud. There were questions about his construction permits. The FBI was asking about Apex Development's contracting practices. None of it was true yet, but Derek's reputation for accuracy meant people listened when he shared confidential information. The rumors reached Kyle within days, and Derek's surveillance team documented Kyle's increasingly panicked behavior. Kyle began making frantic phone calls to his lawyer and accountant. He started deleting files from his computer and became paranoid about being followed. Derek was systematically destroying Kyle's peace of mind while gathering evidence of his consciousness of guilt. Amanda noticed Kyle's changed behavior during their Thursday meeting. Derek's team recorded their argument in the hotel room as Kyle accused Amanda of being indiscreet, and Amanda defended herself. The stress was fracturing their relationship exactly as Derek had planned. Derek also began phase 3 of his psychological campaign, isolating Amanda from her support system. He started hosting dinner parties and social gatherings, inviting Amanda's friends and family. During these events, Derek played the concerned husband, subtly expressing worry about Amanda's stress levels and strange behavior. "I'm concerned about Amanda," Derek confided to her sister Lisa during a Saturday evening barbecue. "She's been working such long hours, and I think the pressure is getting to her." Lisa looked troubled, glancing back at Amanda, who was distracted and barely participating in the conversation. "She's been forgetting conversations we've had, and last week she couldn't remember Tyler's teacher's name." Lisa nodded sympathetically. "She has seemed stressed lately. Maybe she should take a vacation. I've suggested that, but she says she can't leave work right now. I'm worried about her health." Derek was planting seeds that would later support a narrative of Amanda having a breakdown or making irrational decisions. Her family and friends began watching her more closely, noticing her distraction and emotional volatility. By the end of the week, Derek had positioned himself perfectly. He was the concerned husband seeking help for his troubled marriage. Amanda was the distant wife whose behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. Kyle was a criminal whose illegal activities were about to be exposed. Tyler was an innocent child caught in the middle, clearly bonded to his father, and increasingly worried about his mother's absence. Derek's files now contained enough evidence to destroy both Amanda and Kyle financially, legally, and socially. But he wasn't ready to strike yet. He wanted them to make one more crucial mistake that would give him complete leverage over both of them. That mistake came Friday evening when Tyler innocently revealed the final piece Derek needed. "Daddy, why does Mommy keep writing checks to Mr. Kyle? She told me it was a secret and not to tell you." Derek knelt down to Tyler's level, his mind racing. "What kind of checks, buddy?" "Big ones. She writes them at night when she thinks I'm sleeping. She always looks sad after." Derek realized Amanda was funding Kyle's lifestyle and probably his gambling debts. She was stealing from her own family to support her lover. This gave Derek the perfect legal and moral foundation for what came next. Monday morning would begin the final phase of Derek's plan. Amanda and Kyle thought they had months to execute their escape. Derek was about to teach them that some betrayals demanded immediate and devastating consequences. The game was almost over, and Derek held all the winning cards. Derek's plan moved into its final phase on Monday morning with the precision of a military operation. He'd spent the weekend documenting every piece of evidence, preparing legal papers, and coordinating with his team for what would be a systematic destruction of Amanda and Kyle's carefully laid plans. The first strike came at 9 a.m. when Derek's business attorney filed for an emergency custody hearing, citing evidence of Amanda's financial irregularities and emotional instability. The legal papers painted a picture of a mother who was planning to kidnap her child and flee the state with a convicted criminal. Derek had been careful to ensure every allegation was technically accurate, even if the full context was misleading. Simultaneously, Derek's team delivered a comprehensive report about Kyle Brennan's criminal activities to the FBI's white-collar crime unit. The evidence was overwhelming: falsified invoices, bid-rigging documentation, money laundering through shell companies, and theft of federal grant money. Derek had also included evidence that Kyle was connected to organized crime through his gambling debts, making him a national security concern. At 10 a.m., Derek made an anonymous call to Amanda's employer, providing detailed information about her expense account fraud and her plan to steal proprietary client information for her new job in Austin. He also informed them that Amanda was romantically involved with Kyle Brennan, whose construction company was under federal investigation for fraud. Derek then activated the most psychologically devastating part of his plan. He discovered that Kyle was supposed to meet Amanda at lunch to finalize their moving plans. Instead, Kyle was arrested at his office at 11:30 a.m. by federal agents who'd received Derek's evidence package. The arrest was public, humiliating, and permanent. Kyle's face would be on the evening news by dinner time. Amanda learned about Kyle's arrest when she arrived at their lunch meeting to find the restaurant surrounded by news vans. Derek's surveillance team documented her panic as she realized her lover wasn't coming and her future plans had just collapsed. She called Kyle's phone repeatedly, but he was in federal custody and wouldn't be allowed contact for hours. Derek was at his office monitoring everything through his team's communications when Amanda called him. "Derek, something terrible has happened. There's been some kind of mistake. Kyle's been arrested and they're saying horrible things about him on the news." Derek feigned surprise. "Kyle? Who's Kyle?" The pause was telling. Amanda realized she'd revealed her connection to Kyle without thinking. He's someone from work, a contractor we've been working with." "Why would you be upset about a work contractor being arrested, Amanda? That seems like an unusual reaction." Derek could hear Amanda struggling to find a plausible explanation. It's shocking when you know someone who gets arrested, I suppose." "Are you coming home for dinner? Tyler's been asking for you." "Yes, of course. I'll be home soon." But Amanda didn't come home. Derek's surveillance team followed her to a bar where she drank alone for 3 hours, making frantic phone calls to Kyle's lawyer and anyone else who might help her understand what was happening. Derek used this time to implement the next phase of his plan. He called Amanda's sister, Lisa. "I'm worried about Amanda. She called me this afternoon crying about some man named Kyle being arrested. She seemed personally devastated, and I'm not sure why. She's not answering her phone now, and Tyler keeps asking where Mommy is." Lisa was immediately concerned. "That's strange. Who is Kyle?" Derek let the question hang in the air, knowing he had set the stage for Amanda's world to unravel completely. "I don't know, but Amanda was extremely upset. More upset than you'd expect about a work contact. I'm starting to wonder if there's something going on that I don't know about." Derek was carefully planting seeds of doubt in Amanda's family while positioning himself as the confused, concerned husband. By evening, Amanda's mother, sister, and best friend had all called Derek, expressing worry about Amanda's emotional state and her connection to this arrested criminal. When Amanda finally came home at 9 p.m., she was drunk and emotionally shattered. Tyler was already asleep, and Derek was waiting in the living room with divorce papers and a comprehensive file of evidence. "We need to talk, Amanda." Amanda looked at the papers on the coffee table and went pale. "Derek, I can explain." "Can you explain the $23,000 you've stolen from our joint accounts to give to Kyle Brennan? Can you explain the apartment you two toured in Austin? Can you explain why you've been planning to take my son away from me and give him to a convicted felon?" Derek's voice remained calm, but his words were precisely calculated to inflict maximum psychological damage. He'd arranged the evidence in chronological order, creating an undeniable timeline of betrayal. Amanda collapsed into a chair, her elaborate plans crumbling around her. "How did you—" "I'm a private investigator, Amanda. Did you really think you could hide an affair from someone whose job is uncovering secrets? The question now is what happens next." Derek showed her photos of their meetings, copies of her stolen money transactions, evidence of Kyle's criminal activities, and most damaging of all, recordings of their conversations about taking Tyler to Austin. "Kyle is facing 20 years in federal prison for fraud and racketeering. Your new job offer has been rescinded due to your criminal association and theft from your current employer. Your family thinks you're having a mental breakdown because I've been documenting your erratic behavior for weeks." Amanda stared at the evidence, realizing the scope of Derek's knowledge and planning. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You thought you could betray me, steal my money, and take my son. You were wrong." Derek handed her a pen and the divorce papers. "You're going to sign these papers, which give me full custody of Tyler and require you to repay every penny you stole. You're going to move out tonight, and you're going to disappear from our lives permanently." "Derek, please. Tyler needs his mother." "Tyler needs stability and honesty. Two things you've proven incapable of providing. You chose Kyle Brennan over your family. Now you get to live with that choice." Amanda signed the papers with shaking hands, her dreams of a new life with Kyle replaced by the reality of legal consequences and social disgrace. Derek had systematically destroyed every aspect of her plan while ensuring his own position remained unassailable. Amanda lowered her eyes, defeated, understanding at last the true cost of her betrayal. As Amanda packed her belongings, Derek made one final call to his lawyer. "The papers are signed. Begin the custody proceedings immediately and make sure the judge knows about Kyle Brennan's arrest and Amanda's financial theft. I want this finalized before Kyle's trial begins." Derek had won completely, but the cost of victory had changed him. He no longer believed in forgiveness or second chances. Betrayal demanded consequences, and Derek was willing to enforce those consequences without mercy. The aftermath of Derek's revenge unfolded over the following weeks with devastating efficiency. Kyle Brennan's arrest had made headlines across Atlanta, and the federal charges against him continued to multiply as investigators dug deeper into his criminal network. Derek's evidence had opened floodgates of prosecution that would likely keep Kyle in prison for decades. Amanda's destruction was more subtle, but equally complete. Her employer fired her immediately after discovering the expense account fraud and her connection to Kyle. The termination was public enough that word spread quickly through Atlanta's tight-knit marketing community. Her reputation was destroyed before she could even begin looking for new employment. Derek maintained his role as the concerned husband and father throughout Amanda's public disgrace. He'd carefully crafted a narrative where he was the innocent victim who discovered his wife's double life only after her criminal boyfriend was arrested. The story was largely true, which made it completely believable. Tyler adjusted to his mother's absence with resilience that both impressed and concerned Derek. The 4-year-old seemed to understand that his mother had made choices that hurt their family, and he rarely asked when she was coming back. Derek wondered if Tyler's emotional intelligence was a gift or a curse in their family.
Daddy, are we safer now?
Tyler asked one evening during their bedtime routine. Yes, buddy. Why do you ask? Because you don't have that angry look anymore. You used to have it when Mommy came home late. Derek realized his son had been reading the tension in their household for months. Tyler had been living with the stress of his parents' crumbling marriage without understanding the cause. Derek made a mental note to continue Tyler's therapy sessions to help him process the dramatic changes in their lives. Amanda attempted to rebuild her life, but Derek's careful positioning made every move she tried ineffective. When she applied for jobs, potential employers discovered her connection to Kyle Brennan through simple internet searches. When she tried to rent apartments, her credit had been damaged by the required restitution payments for her theft. Derek had ensured that her mistakes would follow her indefinitely. More devastating was Amanda's isolation from her family and friends. They had been carefully manipulated by Derek to view her as unstable and untrustworthy. Her attempts to reach out were met with coldness or outright rejection. She was alone, her world crumbling around her, and there was no one to turn to. Derek's plan had been executed with ruthless precision, leaving Amanda with no hope of redemption or escape. Derek's months of careful manipulation had convinced everyone that Amanda was having a mental breakdown. When she tried to explain that Derek had orchestrated her downfall, it sounded like paranoid delusions from someone whose judgment was already in question. Amanda's sister Lisa visited Derek 3 weeks after Amanda moved out. I'm worried about Amanda's mental state. She's making wild accusations about you setting her up, and she seems to think you're some kind of criminal mastermind. She's clearly not processing this situation rationally. Derek nodded gravely. The therapist warned me this might happen. People sometimes create elaborate conspiracy theories rather than accepting responsibility for their poor choices. Amanda can't admit that she threw away our marriage for a criminal, so she's imagining that I'm the villain. What can we do to help her? Give her time and space, and make sure Tyler doesn't hear these conspiracy theories. He's been through enough trauma. Derek had turned Amanda's truth into evidence of her instability. Her family now saw her attempts to expose Derek's revenge as symptoms of her psychological breakdown. It was a perfect trap with no escape. Kyle Brennan's situation deteriorated even further when Derek discovered Kyle had been skimming money from his gambling associates. Derek anonymously provided this information to several dangerous people in Birmingham who'd been looking for Kyle. The message was clear. Kyle wasn't safe anywhere, even if he somehow avoided prison. Derek also learned that Kyle's ex-wife was filing for sole custody of their 2 children, citing his criminal charges and association with organized crime. Kyle would lose everything, his freedom, his children, his future, and possibly his life if the wrong people found him first. But Derek's most calculated move involved Kyle's legal defense. Derek used his connections to ensure that Kyle's court-appointed attorney was overwhelmed with cases and unprepared to mount an effective defense. Derek also made sure that every piece of evidence against Kyle was thoroughly documented and legally unassailable. When Kyle's lawyer requested a plea bargain, Derek intervened anonymously through the prosecutor's office. The message was simple. Kyle Brennan would receive no mercy, no reduced charges, and no consideration for cooperation. He would serve the maximum sentence for every crime he'd committed. During Kyle's trial, Derek attended several hearings as a concerned citizen interested in justice. He watched Kyle's growing desperation as the man realized that his entire criminal enterprise had been exposed and that he faced decades in prison. Kyle searched the courtroom during each hearing, probably wondering who had destroyed his life so thoroughly. Derek made sure Kyle saw him during the sentencing hearing. When their eyes met, Derek allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction, a silent acknowledgement of the completeness of his triumph. Kyle's expression showed he finally understood that his affair with Amanda had cost him everything. The lesson was complete. Kyle received 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The judge noted the extensive evidence of Kyle's criminal activities and his apparent connections to organized crime. Derek had ensured that Kyle would die in prison, alone and forgotten. Amanda attended Kyle's sentencing, one of only 3 people in the courtroom supporting the defendant. Derek watched her breakdown as Kyle was led away in chains. Her dreams of their future together finally ended. She looked across the courtroom at Derek, her expression filled with recognition and despair. After the trial, Derek approached Amanda in the courthouse hallway. "I hope you understand now that actions have consequences. Kyle learned this lesson too late. You still have time to learn it. You destroyed him. You destroyed both of us. You destroyed yourselves when you chose betrayal over loyalty. I simply ensured you faced the consequences of that choice." Amanda stared at Derek with a mixture of fear and admiration. "Who are you? I thought I knew you. You knew the man who loved you and trusted you. That man is gone. You killed him when you chose Kyle Brennan over our family." Derek walked away from Amanda for the last time. His revenge was complete, but he felt no satisfaction, only a cold certainty that justice had been served. Betrayal demanded consequences, and Derek had proven he was willing to enforce those consequences without mercy or forgiveness. 6 months after Kyle's sentencing, Derek had rebuilt his life with Tyler into something stronger and more honest than before. The house felt lighter without Amanda's deception poisoning every conversation. Tyler thrived in the stability of a home where words matched actions, where promises were kept, and where loyalty was valued above all else. Derek's business had grown substantially as word spread about his effectiveness in handling complex investigations. Clients appreciated his thoroughness and his unwillingness to accept half measures. Derek had learned that there was significant demand for his particular combination of investigative skills and willingness to pursue complete solutions. Tyler had started kindergarten and was excelling academically and socially. Derek attended every school event, parent conference, and class party. He'd kept his promise to be the father he'd never had, and Tyler's confidence and happiness validated Derek's choices. But Derek's peace was disrupted when Amanda made one final attempt to challenge his victory. She'd spent 6 months in therapy, gotten a job as a waitress in a small town outside Atlanta, and convinced a legal aid attorney to help her file for visitation rights with Tyler. Derek received the court papers on a Friday afternoon. Amanda was claiming that she'd been the victim of psychological manipulation, and that Derek had orchestrated her downfall to steal Tyler from her. Her petition painted Derek as a controlling, calculating individual who had driven her to make desperate choices. Derek smiled as he read Amanda's accusations. She was finally telling the truth, but her credibility was so damaged that the truth would sound like desperate lies. Derek had spent months establishing himself as the stable, loving parent, while documenting Amanda's poor choices and emotional instability. Derek's attorney, Margaret Torres, reviewed Amanda's petition with professional skepticism. "She's claiming you manipulated her into the affair and then used your investigative resources to frame her and Kyle. The timeline doesn't support her claims, but she's asking for supervised visitation with Tyler." "What are our chances?" Derek asked. "Excellent. Amanda has no credible evidence of her claims. She's admitted to theft and adultery, and Tyler's been thriving in your care, but we should be prepared for her to make this as difficult as possible." Derek spent the weekend preparing Tyler for the possibility that his mother might try to return to their lives. Tyler's reaction was immediate and clear. "I don't want to see her, Daddy. She made you sad, and she left us. Why would she want to come back now?" "Sometimes people make mistakes and want to fix them, Tyler. But you don't have to worry about anything changing. You're safe with me." "Will you let her take me away?" Derek knelt down to Tyler's level, making the same promise he'd made to himself months earlier. "No one will ever take you away from me, Tyler. I promise you that." The custody hearing was scheduled for the following month, giving Derek time to prepare his defense. But Derek wasn't content to simply defend against Amanda's accusations. He decided to use the hearing to demonstrate once and for all why Amanda deserved no place in Tyler's life. Derek hired a private investigator to monitor Amanda's activities leading up to the hearing. What they discovered was both pathetic and infuriating. Amanda had been in contact with Kyle through prison letters, sending him money and declaring her continued love despite everything that had happened. She was still choosing Kyle over Tyler, even when Kyle was in prison and could offer her nothing. Derek also discovered that Amanda had been telling people that Tyler wasn't Derek's biological son, hoping to use paternity questions to complicate the custody case. DNA tests Derek had quietly conducted months earlier proved Tyler was definitely his child, but Amanda's willingness to lie about Tyler's parentage demonstrated her complete lack of maternal instinct or moral boundaries. The most damaging evidence came from Amanda's therapy sessions, which Derek's investigator obtained through legal subpoena. The transcripts showed Amanda was still struggling to accept responsibility for her actions, instead blaming everyone around her, including her own son, for her unhappiness. Amanda had told her therapist that she regretted having Tyler because he trapped her in marriage with Derek. She'd also expressed resentment that Tyler looked like Derek and reminded her of her mistakes. Derek arrived at the custody hearing with a comprehensive file documenting Amanda's continued poor judgment, her ongoing relationship with the imprisoned Kyle, and her lack of genuine maternal feelings for Tyler. He was prepared to dismantle Amanda's credibility so thoroughly that she would never again be able to threaten Tyler's stability. Amanda's legal aid attorney was clearly overwhelmed by the evidence Derek presented. Amanda herself looked defeated before the hearing even began. She'd lost weight, her hair was unkempt, and her clothes were shabby. 6 months of consequences had aged her dramatically. When Amanda took the witness stand, Derek watched her struggle to explain her choices without admitting full responsibility. She claimed Derek had manipulated her into the affair but couldn't explain how or why. She insisted she loved Tyler but couldn't provide any convincing reason for why she'd planned to move him away from his father to live with a criminal. Most devastating was when Amanda admitted she was still in love with Kyle and planned to wait for his release from prison. The judge's expression showed clear disapproval as Amanda once again chose to prioritize her relationship with Kyle over her relationship with Tyler. Derek's testimony was brief and focused. He spoke about Tyler's needs, his own commitment to being a present father, and his concerns about Amanda's inability to prioritize Tyler's well-being over her romantic relationships. He presented Tyler's school records, medical records, and therapy notes, showing a child who was thriving in a stable environment. The judge's decision was swift and absolute. Amanda's petition for visitation was denied. The court found that Amanda had demonstrated continued poor judgment, emotional instability, and a pattern of prioritizing inappropriate relationships over her child's welfare. The judge also noted that Tyler had expressed no desire to see his mother and had shown no signs of missing her presence. More significantly, the judge issued a restraining order preventing Amanda from contacting Tyler or coming within 500 yards of his school or Derek's home. Amanda's parental rights were permanently terminated, and Derek was granted sole legal and physical custody. As Amanda left the courthouse in tears, Derek felt no sympathy for her pain. She'd had multiple opportunities to choose Tyler over Kyle, and she'd failed every test. Derek had simply ensured that her failures had permanent consequences. Outside the courthouse, Derek's attorney congratulated him on the complete victory. Amanda will never be able to challenge this decision. You've protected Tyler permanently. Derek nodded, knowing the promise he'd made to his son was finally and truly fulfilled. Derek nodded, satisfied that Tyler would never again have to worry about his mother's instability or poor choices disrupting his life. Amanda had chosen betrayal over loyalty, Kyle over Tyler, and fantasy over responsibility. Derek had ensured she would live with those choices forever. 2 years after Amanda's parental rights were terminated, Derek had established a new normal with Tyler that exceeded his expectations. Tyler, now 6 years old, had developed into a confident, intelligent child who excelled at school and showed early signs of his father's analytical mind and moral clarity. Derek had been careful not to poison Tyler's memories of his mother, but he also didn't create false narratives about Amanda's love or her reasons for leaving. When Tyler asked questions about his mother, Derek provided age-appropriate honesty. Mommy made choices that hurt our family, and sometimes when people make certain choices, they can't be part of the family anymore. Tyler seemed to accept this explanation without trauma or confusion. Derek suspected his son understood more about loyalty and consequences than most adults. Tyler had learned early that actions mattered, that promises should be kept, and that family meant putting each other first. Derek's business had continued to expand, and he had developed a reputation as someone who solved problems permanently. His clients included executives dealing with corporate espionage, politicians handling blackmail attempts, and wealthy individuals protecting their families from various threats. Derek's willingness to pursue complete solutions, regardless of legal boundaries, made him valuable to people who understood that some problems required extreme measures. But Derek's most interesting case came from an unexpected source: Amanda's sister, Lisa. Lisa called Derek on a Tuesday evening, her voice shaky with emotion. "Derek, I need your help. I know things between you and Amanda ended badly, but something terrible has happened." Derek listened as Lisa explained that her husband of 12 years had been embezzling money from their family business and was planning to disappear with his secretary. Lisa had discovered the affair and the theft, but her husband had threatened to take their 2 children and flee the country if she tried to stop him. "I know what you did to Amanda and Kyle," Lisa said quietly. "I know Amanda claims you destroyed them, but I also know they deserved everything they got. I need someone who can stop my husband before he ruins my children's lives." Derek was intrigued by the request. Lisa had been one of Amanda's strongest supporters during the divorce, but she'd apparently learned from her sister's mistakes. Lisa was asking for help before her husband could execute his betrayal, not after. "What exactly are you asking me to do, Lisa?" "Whatever it takes to protect my children and stop my husband from stealing our family's money. I don't care what happens to him, but I won't let him destroy my kids' lives." Derek agreed to meet with Lisa, partly out of curiosity and partly because her situation reminded him of his own betrayal. But as Derek investigated Lisa's husband, he discovered something that changed everything. Lisa's husband, Robert, had been in contact with Amanda throughout the past 2 years. Amanda had been encouraging Robert to leave Lisa and start over somewhere else, just as she'd planned to do with Kyle. Amanda was actively trying to destroy her own sister's marriage out of jealousy and spite. Derek realized that Amanda hadn't learned from her consequences. She'd simply found new ways to cause damage. She was like a virus, spreading betrayal and destruction wherever she went. Derek's original revenge hadn't been complete, because Amanda was still capable of hurting innocent people. Derek presented his findings to Lisa, including recorded phone conversations between Amanda and Robert, where Amanda encouraged Robert's affair and his plans to steal money. Lisa's face went pale as she listened to her sister actively sabotaging her marriage. "She's been pretending to support me while encouraging my husband to leave me. How could she do this to me, to my children?" Derek saw an opportunity to teach a broader lesson about consequences and loyalty. Amanda believes she was treated unfairly, so she's trying to make everyone else as miserable as she is. She'll keep destroying families until someone stops her permanently. Lisa's expression hardened as she understood the scope of Amanda's betrayal. "What can we do?" Derek smiled, recognizing the same cold anger he'd felt when he discovered Amanda's original betrayal. "We can teach Amanda that some lessons need to be reinforced." Over the following month, Derek orchestrated a comprehensive campaign that simultaneously destroyed Robert's plans and demonstrated to Amanda that her ability to hurt others had limits. Derek exposed Robert's embezzlement to the authorities while documenting Amanda's role in encouraging the theft. Both Robert and Amanda were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and theft. But Derek's real masterstroke involved Amanda's parole status. Amanda had received probation for her original theft charges, and her involvement in encouraging Robert's crimes violated the terms of her probation. Amanda was sentenced to 2 years in prison, finally paying a real price for her pattern of destructive behavior. Derek also ensured that Amanda's prison experience would be educational. Through his contacts in the correction system, Derek made sure Amanda's fellow inmates learned about her role in destroying families and encouraging men to abandon their children. Amanda's time in prison became a daily reminder that actions have consequences. Tyler, now old enough to understand more complex situations, asked Derek about Amanda's imprisonment. "Is Mommy in jail because she was mean to Aunt Lisa?" Derek looked into his son's thoughtful eyes and answered with gentle honesty. "Mommy is in jail because she kept making bad choices and hurting people. Sometimes people have to learn hard lessons before they understand that their actions matter." "Will she learn this time?" Derek looked at his son, recognizing Tyler's innate understanding of justice and consequences. "Some people never learn, Tyler. That's why it's important to choose loyalty and honesty from the beginning." Tyler nodded solemnly, absorbing another lesson about character and consequences. Derek realized he was raising a child who would never tolerate betrayal or dishonesty, someone who would demand loyalty and give it in return. Tyler was becoming the kind of person Derek wished he'd had as a father. As Amanda served her prison sentence, Derek continued building his life with Tyler around principles of loyalty, honesty, and permanent consequences for betrayal. Derek had learned that forgiveness was overrated, that some people would never change, and that sometimes destroying someone completely was the only way to protect innocent people from their destructive patterns. Derek had become someone who enforced consequences without mercy, and he was completely comfortable with that evolution. Tyler was learning the same lessons, and Derek was confident his son would never make Amanda's mistakes or tolerate betrayal from others. 4 years had passed since Amanda's imprisonment, and Derek's life with Tyler had evolved into something he'd never imagined possible. Tyler, now 10 years old, displayed a maturity and moral clarity that impressed everyone who met him. Teachers praised his leadership abilities, his sense of justice, and his unwavering loyalty to his friends and family. Derek had taught Tyler that loyalty was the highest virtue, that promises were sacred, and that betrayal demanded severe consequences. Tyler had internalized these lessons completely, sometimes in ways that surprised even Derek. When Tyler's best friend, Marcus, had lied about breaking Tyler's science project, Tyler hadn't just ended the friendship. He'd systematically turned their entire class against Marcus by exposing every lie Marcus had ever told. When Derek received a call from the school about Tyler's bullying behavior, Derek felt pride rather than concern. "Tyler did exactly what he should have done," Derek told the concerned teacher. "Marcus chose to lie and betray Tyler's trust. Tyler simply ensured that Marcus faced appropriate consequences for his choices." The teacher seemed disturbed by Derek's response. But Tyler's reaction was disproportionate. Marcus is now completely isolated and struggling emotionally. Marcus is learning that actions have consequences. Tyler is learning to protect himself from people who can't be trusted. Both boys are getting a valuable education. Derek had raised Tyler to be uncompromising about loyalty and honesty, and Tyler was applying those lessons with impressive consistency. Tyler's dedication to these values not only shaped his relationships, but also reinforced the foundation upon which Derek had rebuilt their lives. Derek worried sometimes that Tyler might be too harsh, too unforgiving. But then he remembered Amanda's betrayal and felt convinced that Tyler's approach was necessary protection against a world full of potential betrayers. Derek's business had continued to grow, and he developed a reputation as someone who could solve any problem permanently. His methods had become increasingly extreme, but his results were undeniable. Corporate executives, politicians, and wealthy families sought Derek's services when they needed threats eliminated completely and permanently. Derek had also begun training Tyler in the family business, teaching him surveillance techniques, psychology, and the art of gathering compromising information. Tyler showed natural talent for reading people's weaknesses and understanding how to apply pressure effectively. But Derek's carefully constructed world was challenged when he received an unexpected visitor, Amanda's mother, Helen. Helen arrived at Derek's office on a Tuesday afternoon, looking aged and worn down by years of family trauma. Derek hadn't seen her since before Amanda's imprisonment, and her appearance shocked him. "Derek, I need to talk to you about Amanda and Tyler." Derek remained professional, but cold. "Amanda has no rights regarding Tyler. and nothing has changed about that situation. Amanda is being released from prison next month. She's asked me to bring Tyler to see her. Derek's expression hardened immediately. That will never happen. Derek, please. She's Tyler's mother. She's learned from her mistakes and she's changed. She just wants to see her son once. Amanda chose Kyle Brennan over Tyler. She chose to encourage Robert to abandon his children. She chose betrayal and destruction repeatedly. Tyler doesn't have a mother because Amanda proved she was unworthy of that title. Helen's eyes filled with tears. Tyler is her only child. Doesn't she deserve a chance to apologize to him? Amanda deserves exactly what she chose, nothing. Tyler has learned to live without her, and he's better off for it. I won't allow her to disrupt his stability with her selfish need for forgiveness. Derek called Tyler into the office, wanting him to hear this conversation and make his own choice. Tyler entered with the confidence of a child who'd never doubted his father's protection. Tyler, your grandmother Helen wants to take you to see Amanda in prison. What do you think about that? Tyler looked at Helen with polite disinterest. Why would I want to see someone who hurt my father and tried to take me away from him? Helen gasped at Tyler's cold dismissal. Tyler, she's your mother. She loves you. No, she doesn't. If she loved me, she wouldn't have chosen that criminal over me. If she loved me, she wouldn't have tried to hurt Aunt Lisa's family. People who love you don't betray you. Derek felt proud of Tyler's clarity and strength. His son understood loyalty and consequences better than most adults, and Derek knew Tyler would carry these lessons with him for the rest of his life. Tyler had learned the right lessons from Amanda's failures. Helen left Derek's office in tears, understanding that Tyler felt no connection to Amanda and no curiosity about reconciliation. Derek had successfully severed that relationship permanently, protecting Tyler from Amanda's destructive influence. But Derek's satisfaction was short-lived. 2 weeks later, he received a court summons. Amanda had filed a petition claiming that Derek had systematically alienated Tyler from her and was requesting supervised visitation rights. Derek's attorney reviewed the petition with concern. Amanda's claiming parental alienation syndrome. She says you've brainwashed Tyler against her and that his rejection of her is artificial rather than natural. Tyler's rejection of Amanda is based on her choices and actions. He understands cause and effect better than most adults. The court might see it differently. Tyler's complete lack of interest in his mother could be interpreted as evidence of manipulation. Derek realized that Amanda was making one final attempt to insert herself into Tyler's life. Even from prison, she was trying to use the legal system to force Tyler to accept her presence. Derek would need to demonstrate once again that Amanda's destructive pattern made her permanently unsuitable as a mother. Derek spent the following weeks documenting Tyler's emotional health, academic success, and social development. Every measure showed a child who was thriving without Amanda's presence. Derek also gathered evidence of Amanda's continued poor judgment, including her attempts to contact Kyle in prison and her failure to accept responsibility for her role in destroying multiple families. But Derek's most powerful evidence came from Tyler himself. When asked to write a letter to the judge about his feelings toward his mother, Tyler produced a clear, logical explanation of why he didn't want Amanda in his life. Amanda chose a criminal over me and Daddy. She tried to take me away from my home and give me to a stranger. She hurt Aunt Lisa's family because she was jealous. People who make these choices don't deserve to be called mothers. I don't want to see her because she would bring drama and problems into our peaceful life. Daddy protects me from people who want to hurt us, and Amanda is one of those people. Derek read Tyler's letter with mixed emotions. His son had learned Derek's lessons perfectly, but the complete absence of any maternal bond was both protective and troubling. Derek wondered if he'd created a child who was incapable of forgiveness, or if he'd simply taught Tyler to protect himself from toxic people. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following month, and Derek was confident of victory. Tyler's clear rejection of Amanda, combined with her continued pattern of poor choices, would convince any reasonable judge that forced visitation would harm Tyler rather than help him. As the hearing approached, Derek prepared meticulously, determined to protect Tyler one last time. The final custody hearing took place on a cold February morning. with Derek and Tyler arriving at the courthouse prepared for Amanda's last desperate attempt to force her way back into their lives. Tyler, now 10 years old, carried himself with quiet confidence as they walked through the courthouse halls. Derek had explained that this would likely be the final time they'd have to deal with Amanda's legal challenges. Amanda appeared in court looking healthier than during her imprisonment, but Derek noticed the desperation in her eyes. She'd lost weight, her hair was graying prematurely, and her clothes were inexpensive but clean. Prison had aged her, but more importantly, it hadn't changed her fundamental character. Amanda's new attorney, funded by her mother's dwindling savings, argued that Derek had systematically poisoned Tyler against his mother through years of manipulation and lies. He claimed that Tyler's rejection of Amanda was artificial, created by Derek's psychological abuse rather than Amanda's actual behavior. Derek listened to the accusations with cold amusement. Amanda's attorney was essentially arguing that Tyler was too intelligent and too morally clear to have reached his own conclusions about his mother's character. The argument inadvertently praised Derek's parenting while trying to criticize it. When Tyler was called to testify, Derek felt both pride and concern. His son walked to the witness stand with complete composure, answering the judge's questions with clarity and maturity that impressed everyone in the courtroom. "Do you understand why we're here today?" the judge asked gently. "Yes, Your Honor. Amanda wants me to visit her, but I don't want to. She's asking the court to force me to see her even though I've explained why that's not good for me." "Can you tell me why you don't want to see your mother?" Tyler's response was devastating in its clarity. "Amanda made choices that hurt my father and me. She chose a criminal named Kyle over our family. She planned to take me away from my father and give me to Kyle, who I didn't know. When she went to prison, she encouraged my Uncle Robert to steal money and leave his children, just like she tried to do. People who make these choices aren't safe to be around." The judge leaned forward, clearly impressed by Tyler's articulate response. "Do you remember your mother from when you were younger?" "Yes. I remember her lying to my father about working late when she was really meeting Kyle. I remember her being gone a lot and seeming angry when she had to spend time with me. She didn't want to be with me, and she didn't want to be with my father. She wanted to be with Kyle, and she chose him over our family. She chose to hurt us, and that's why I don't want to see her. I don't want her to hurt us again." The courtroom was silent as Tyler finished his testimony. Derek felt a swell of pride and a deep sense of satisfaction. Tyler had learned the lessons of loyalty, consequences, and protection, and he had applied them with unwavering clarity. The judge looked at Derek, then back at Tyler, and finally at Amanda, who sat with her head down, defeated. The judge's decision was swift and final. Based on the evidence presented and the testimony of Tyler, I find that Amanda has not demonstrated the ability to prioritize her child's well-being over her own desires. Tyler's rejection of Amanda is based on her actions and choices, not on any manipulation by Derek. The court denies Amanda's petition for supervised visitation. Tyler's best interests are served by maintaining the current custody arrangement, and Amanda's continued attempts to disrupt that stability are not in Tyler's best interests. Amanda's attorney began to protest, but the judge silenced him with a stern look. "This is the final judgment on this matter. Any further attempts to challenge this decision will be met with contempt of court. This hearing is adjourned." As the courtroom emptied, Derek and Tyler stood up, ready to leave. Derek placed a hand on Tyler's shoulder, feeling a deep sense of protection and pride. They had faced Amanda's final challenge and emerged victorious, ensuring that Tyler would never have to deal with his mother's destructive influence again. As they walked out of the courthouse, Derek knew that he had successfully taught Tyler the value of loyalty, the importance of consequences, and the necessity of protecting oneself from toxic people. Their future was secure, and Amanda's attempts to disrupt their lives were finally, permanently over. "I remember her planning to move me to Austin without asking what I wanted." Derek watched Amanda's face crumble as Tyler calmly recounted her failures as a mother. Tyler wasn't emotional or angry. He was simply stating facts about Amanda's choices and their consequences. "Tyler, do you think people can change?" Do you think your mother might be different now? The judge asked. Tyler considered the question carefully before answering. I think some people can change if they really understand what they did wrong and why it was wrong. But Amanda is still writing letters to Kyle in prison, so she hasn't changed. She still chooses him over me. The revelation about Amanda's continued contact with Kyle sent a visible shock through the courtroom. Amanda's attorney looked stunned, clearly unaware that his client was still communicating with the man whose criminal activities had destroyed her family. Derek's attorney presented evidence of Amanda's letters to Kyle, obtained through legal subpoena of prison correspondence. The letters revealed that Amanda still believed she and Kyle had been treated unfairly, that she planned to wait for his release, and that she viewed Tyler primarily as a tool to hurt Derek, rather than a child she genuinely missed. The most damaging letter, written just 2 months earlier, included Amanda's statement, "Once I get visitation rights, I can work on turning Tyler against Derek and maybe get full custody eventually. Kyle thinks we should move to Mexico where Derek can't follow us." Derek watched Amanda's face as her own words destroyed her case. Even her attorney looked defeated as the true scope of Amanda's continued treachery became clear. She wasn't seeking reconciliation with Tyler. She was planning another attempt to take him away. When Derek testified, he spoke calmly about Tyler's emotional health, academic success, and strong moral development. He presented evidence of Tyler's leadership abilities, his loyalty to friends, and his clear understanding of right and wrong. Tyler has learned that actions have consequences, that loyalty matters, and that some people will repeatedly make choices that hurt others. He's protecting himself from someone who has proven she cannot be trusted. That's not alienation, that's wisdom. Derek also presented testimony from Tyler's teachers, coaches, and therapists, all confirming that Tyler was a well-adjusted child who showed no signs of psychological manipulation or artificial hostility toward his mother. Tyler's rejection of Amanda was based on his own observations and logical conclusions about her character. The judge's decision was swift and comprehensive. Amanda's petition for visitation was denied permanently. The court found that Amanda had demonstrated continued deception, ongoing criminal associations, and a fundamental inability to prioritize her child's welfare over her own desires. With Tyler's wishes clear, Derek's evidence overwhelming, and Amanda's intentions exposed, the judge decreed that all contact would remain severed and Tyler's safety and peace would be protected once and for all. More significantly, the judge issued a permanent restraining order preventing Amanda from any future contact with Tyler, including through third parties. Amanda's parental rights, already terminated, were reinforced with additional legal barriers to prevent any future challenges. The court finds that the minor child, Tyler Mitchell, has demonstrated remarkable maturity and clear reasoning in his rejection of contact with Amanda Mitchell. This court will not force a child to maintain relationships with individuals who pose ongoing threats to his emotional and physical safety. As Amanda was led from the courtroom, she looked back at Tyler with a mixture of hatred and desperation. Tyler met her gaze with calm indifference, showing no emotion about the permanent severing of their relationship. Outside the courthouse, Derek knelt down to Tyler's level. "How do you feel about never having to deal with this again?" "Relieved," Tyler said simply. "She was never really my mother anyway. She was just someone who happened to give birth to me. You're my real family." Derek felt a complex mixture of pride and concern about Tyler's complete emotional detachment from Amanda. His son had learned Derek's lessons about loyalty and consequences perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. Tyler was growing into someone who would never tolerate betrayal, but might also never forgive human weakness. As they drove home, Derek reflected on the 4-year journey from discovering Amanda's betrayal to achieving complete victory over her attempts to remain in their lives. Derek had successfully protected Tyler from Amanda's toxicity while teaching him valuable lessons about character and consequences. But Derek also realized that Tyler was becoming something harder and more unforgiving than Derek had intended. Tyler understood loyalty and justice, but he seemed incapable of mercy or forgiveness. Derek decided that Tyler's hardness was a necessary armor in a world full of potential betrayers. Amanda had proven that some people couldn't be trusted, wouldn't change, and would continue causing damage until permanently stopped. Tyler had learned to identify and neutralize such people before they could cause harm. As they arrived home, Derek felt satisfied that he had protected Tyler completely while teaching him the most important lesson of all. Betrayal demands consequences. Loyalty is earned through actions, not words, and some people deserve no forgiveness because they'll never stop choosing destruction over loyalty. Tyler had learned that lesson perfectly, and Derek was confident his son would never make Amanda's mistakes or tolerate betrayal from others. The price of betrayal had been paid in full, and the lesson would last forever. I'm sorry, but I can only provide story content.